Hi everybody, and welcome to the Chat and Vibe series for the upcoming Vitality Festival, which starts on the 31st of October. It's 9 incredible and inspiring days. We've got 70 speakers lining up for all world experts in the health and well-being sector. We'd love you to join along, and you'll find at the bottom of this YouTube clip there will be a link, and we'd love to have you along. But today we are talking with Alan Stevens. How are you today, Alan?
Very good, thank you.
That's good. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you are up to these days?
Rightio. Well, first of all, congratulations on bringing this event together and getting so many speakers to join in and wanting to reach 10,000 frontline workers. I think it's absolutely fantastic, because my whole business is in relationship building, how to read somebody and understand their personality, and then also being able to understand their emotions as well, so that we can really connect with them, because everything we do in life is based on relationships. Now, if we don't get a good relationship with somebody, we don't have a connection with them, and we just don't get the results that we need. So it's all about being able to connect. And the way I do that is helping people to read people's facial features that tell you their personality. Now, I reckon a few people who are listening to this right now are going, well, this sounds a bit woo-woo. But as the sign behind me says, it's a science and art of reading people. If you lift weights, you're going to build muscles. And everything you feel inside, you're going to express outwardly. Like, you know, if you're feeling happy, sad, etc., you'll have those expressions. But if you're concentrating deeply, if you're somebody who really focuses in, as you'll notice, I'm pulling my muscles on my face. You do that over and over, you're going to build ridges and crevices on your face that will tell me how you like to think and process. There's your personality. So your face is a roadmap to your personality itself. And then at the same time, we have the expressions and the body language, what they call micro expressions, little twitches that happen on your face when something happens around you, something is said. You respond unconsciously, then your conscious mind steps in and shuts it off. But that 1/5 of a second down to 1/25 of a second, the human eye can pick it up. And when you've had a bit of experience with it, you're able to read those in someone, so you know their emotions at the same time. So first of all, I know if I've connected with them, if I'm talking to their traits, and then I've got the expressions that tell me whether I've made that connection. Is there something emotional going on? And to the point, whether the person is really telling us the truth or not as well. So I use it not as lie detection, but as truth seeking.
And so tell me, what's the benefit? I mean, why would somebody want to be able to read somebody else's face?
Well, it's all about building that relationship. We all want to have a better time. It's not about reading someone to manipulate them, because that takes a lot of work. But if you're reading them to understand them, because the old saying, speak to people or treat people the way you would have them treat you. Now, that's when we're talking about respect, that's absolutely true. But when it comes to communication, we want to treat the other person in the way that they would have us treat them. Because I know that you're big picture, you like the overview of information. I'm analytical, so I need more information when I'm to make a decision, which means I'm going to tell people a lot of information when I'm relaying, you know, a story or whatever. And I know that if I talk the way I like to be spoken to you, I'm going to switch you off. And you're going to, oh, shiny, where's a bird? You'll get distracted really quickly. So I want to be able to get my message across to you. If I can read you, then I know exactly how much information to give you. And you feel then that you're being treated and understood by me. There's a bond. We build rapport very fast when we're able to read somebody in that way.
So the building of rapport really helps to enhance relationships, whether it's business relationships or relationships at home. In particular, you know, a lot of people are having to spend a lot of time at home. Some people on their own, but some people with family members they probably haven't spent so much time with. And it's important, from what you're saying, to be able to speak language that the person on the receiving end is going to understand, rather than just sort of vomiting or information all over somebody. Is that right?
That's exactly right. It's all about making sure that we relay the information in the volumes and the way in which they want to get it as well. Because some people like to have it in a structured order. Other people can pull it all over the place. So if you're opposite on a number of traits, yes, when you first got together that was interesting around that person, but over a period of time, and especially being in lockdown, for instance, or being in very confined spaces for long periods of time, the downside of our traits, because every trait's got an upside and every trait's got a downside. And the more expressive the upside is, also the downside is also just as expressive. So we now notice the downsides and we start to get misunderstandings. We're not communicating. But if we understand the other person's traits and we understand our own, we know how to change the way that we like to be spoken to match the way they want to be spoken to. And people go, why would I want to do that? Because the other person's going to be happy to be around you, and that's going to make your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's going to take the pressures off you.
And does everything that you're teaching, does that translate exactly the same via all this internet Zoom connection as well?
Yeah, well, I've been doing a lot of workshops with on Zoom with multiples of people, anything up to 20 people or 30 people on screen. And you know how small the faces are there. And I'll do a presentation, explain to everybody, as I already have, about how this works. And then I'll just start picking people off the screen and start talking about them. And especially if they know each other, I find out, well, I say, right, well, this is where you're not communicating with this person at the moment. If you change this way, this is the result you'll get. And I just watch the laughter and I watch the people's happiness on their face going, oh, finally, I understand.
Yeah.
And so it's not just making it better for the other person you're talking to. Once you realize you're connected with the other person more effectively, it drops the pressure that you've got on yourself. And you'll actually feel your whole neurology, your physiology, you'll actually feel your breath go, oh. Yeah. And that's what it's
kind of like speaking to somebody in a language they understand rather than talking to them in Spanish when they've got no understanding of it.
That's exactly right. And see, the facial features don't change overnight. Therefore, if you want to understand someone's personality, all you need is their photograph. Their website photographs on their, the websites are LinkedIn, their Facebook pages. If you can see their face, you've got their personality straight away. Wow. And then when you meet them, now you've got the added information, the feedback through the body language and expressions, but now tell you what's going on emotionally.
So you're saying it's a science, and is there something that you've learned over a period of time, and is it something that's easy to teach other people to do?
Well, I always start off by telling people my background. And my background was through 2 divorces, a lot of broken relationships, even business partners who emptied the bank out. I'd been in surf clubs, I'd been in community areas, in business. All those areas, I was out of my depth. When I was 23, I was put in charge of men who were all older than me. My second in charge was 38. Had to get them on side. So I've been struggling all the way through my life to understand what made people tick. And so through I've been doing the psychometric profiling like Myers-Briggs, DISC and all those sort of things, and realized that I had to spend time with somebody or ask them questions to get an answer on those. And I needed something where I could get them straight away. And so when it was mentioned to me one day about, you ever looked at reading faces? And I went and searched and found the Paul Ekman group. Paul Ekman was a guy who did all the research on the micro-expressions, and a lady by the name of Naomi Tickle who did all the work on the facial features, put the 2 programs together, brought the body language into it and the language of how to speak to them, and created rapid trait profiling. And when it came to the micro-expressions, I wasn't very good at all, but with a little bit of training, and it didn't take too long, I averaged at about 1/10 of a second, 96% accuracy. And if I can do it, and I'm only telling you those figures for one reason only, if I can do it, you can do it as well. Oh. And everybody that I train come back to me after, shortly after they started to train, they go, you are right, I'll never look at people the same way again.
Oh, it's incredible. Incredible. I have to ask you, so what happens these days, so many people are having injectables put into their faces to stop, the formation of lines and all sorts of things like that. Does that affect the ability to be read by somebody because of all of that?
It reduces some of the traits as far as, Botox and things like that. And by the way, for the ladies who are listening to this, the little lines out from the side of the eyes here, what they call the crow's feet or the laughter lines, don't get rid of them, because you only get those if you're really happy and the eyes go really tight and you force the muscles and you get those lines. It shows that you're somebody who enjoys life. that you're somebody that people should be enjoy being around. If I go into a room and I'm seeing mature age women and they haven't got lines there, I'm probably going to go and talk to somebody else because I want to have an enjoyable conversation. But it now looks at it's not one trait on its own, it's a combination of traits. So what are the other traits telling me? Are they telling me that, yes, there could be Botox because the mouth is turned up, there's a natural smile from these muscles being stronger, or is the mouth turned down? If the mouth's turned down and they've got no lines here, that person's not a happy person. So I can pick up whether they've had some cosmetic surgery, but there's about 68 traits that I'm looking at. So one or two, if I can't see those, then I've got the body language, got the expressions. There's so much information you can pick up.
And one thing you were talking about before is the art of learning to read people helps you with the ability to communicate. And I think what's really important is building rapport between two people, and this whole mirroring effect. It's often, you know, when you're looking at somebody, if they do something, if you're nodding, then the other person tends to nod. So is all of that sort of, is that encompassed in all the things that you do?
Yeah, well, a lot of people talk about mirroring and matching somebody. So you set out to do that by watching them and, you know, mirroring and matching. But if you're really focused on them to understand them through their facial features and you start talking to them that way, it's naturally they're going to be mirroring you as well because we do it unconsciously. And I've had people talking to others and they go, did you match a mirror? And they go, oh, no, I didn't even think about it. And then I show them a video of what I'd be sitting in the background recording and I go, you matched and mirrored each other all the way through. Not only did you do it of them, they did it of you as well. And so when you build rapport, a lot of that stuff becomes natural. So instead of forcing it and trying to do it, focus on the other person, and a lot of the stuff that they try and teach you how to do just becomes a natural process.
Incredible. And from what I understand, you know, there's lots of ways that we build rapport, but the main ones are visually, auditorily, and then kinesthetically in terms of the way you feel. So do we have the ability to change the way we build rapport from one person to the other?
Well, we don't really change the way that we like to receive the information. That's why it's important the other people know how to read us as well. But with all the traits, we go beyond the 3 levels. We actually mix and match them all the way through. But it's a case of when you're talking to the other person, you're looking at their traits, not so much whether they're visual or auditory, etc. We're looking at whether they need a lot of information or a short amount of information. When they get that information, do they process it quickly, or do they just want the best way to do it and get it done, getting like driven by action, or do they want to look for all the different possibilities? How much time are they going to take to process that as well? Depends on their confidence levels. That's all given away in the face. So it takes things like the disc profiling and Myers-Briggs to a completely new level. It takes the auditory, kinesthetic, and the visual all to another level as well. And to the point, it's not only just in personal relationships, but I've had mothers of children who have got autism and Asperger's who have, once I've profiled the child and then showed them how to change the way they like to speak to the way the child needed to be spoke to, they've gone and shown the teachers and the after schools care, the whole life of that child's changed because all of a sudden we're talking to them the way they need to be spoken to. They feel that they're connected now, so their states don't get triggered as easy as they did before. And when I've got parents sending me testimonial videos 10 years later, telling me about the changes that are continually happening, this works. So if it works at that level, what about somebody who's working in the front line right now and under stress and everything else? Just ask yourself, would you like other people to be able to not just see that you're stressed or anything else and be asking you why and all the rest of it, but to be able to truly connect with you at that level so that you feel safe around them, and for you to be able to do that with other people.
Amazing. And what would you say to a lot of people? I know a lot of us are having to wear masks. You know, some of the frontline people are having to wear a couple of masks, and even more, more gear. What would you say to those people in terms of establishing some sort of communication? Because there's a whole part of their face which we can't see anymore.
Well, again, the eyes are as they say, are the windows to the soul. And I say, well, the faces are the windows to your mind. But in that particular area, it's not only, if you only can see the eyes, you can see the levels of stress that a person has. You can see whether they've got emotional expression, whether they're really happy, whether they've got magnetism. You can then work it down to what level of stress they have. There are indications in the eyes itself that tell you exactly what their emotional levels are before you even look at the expressions. Then you've also got the body around it as well. So the way they're walking, the way their colour of their face, the breathing. There's 2 million bits of information out there every second, and we only process 134 bits. So you can say, right, I can lose this. There's so much more you can pick up.
Yeah, amazing. Fantastic information. And so at the Vitality Festival, you're talking about the art of communication. Talk to us a little bit about what people can expect from your workshop.
Well, one of the things is I hate death by PowerPoints and being talked at. I like to get people involved, and the good thing is where we can see the people, we actually getting them engaged, talking about different traits, but for them to be able to see them in themselves as well. So everybody who comes along, make sure you've got a mirror or your phone ready on selfie mode so you can see yourself. Because we're going to look at a few traits, and we're then going to get each person look at their own traits as well. So they understand them, their own personality first of all. Because if we want to connect with other people, we have to know, if we want to talk to them in the way they want to be spoken to, we need to know where we are on the world scale compared to them. And so if a person's sitting here and I'm at this side of them and somebody else is on that side, I change differently to talk to that one that way. And for that person to talk the same way, they've got to change differently themselves. But we both talk to that person the same way. And so we'll be going through that. I can guarantee one thing, that after the workshop, they will never look at other people the same way again.
That sounds fascinating. Really, really great. Thank you. And tell us, through your time of COVID and maybe even through, you know, clients that you're interacting with, what have you seen as some of the biggest learning opportunities that's come about?
Well, instead of focusing on the negative side of everything, there are also positive sides. So I've been running the Campfire Project, which is a closed group on Facebook, originally for men, but I've had women in there from day one. It was a safe place for the men to be able to come along and tell their stories and give themselves permission to do that. The women have been in there for two reasons. One, so that they could hear how men could speak when they're given the opportunity to do so, but also for the women then to do a test to see how they would respect the men doing that. But at the same time, for the men then to realise that there are some really great women in there, so they would know whether they've worked through this stuff because of the communications and conversations they've had with the women. And we brought that from one-on-one chats like this on Zoom into panel discussions with 4 of us on screen at the one time. Then the women came into those and we had one-on-ones with the women, then brought them into the panel discussions. 200 one-on-one interviews in the last 2 years, plus 80 panel discussions, Facebook Lives and other things going on. See, I built the bus, you might say. I've been driving the bus, and now I'm getting out of the driver's seat and into the passenger seat, and others are stepping up and getting into that role. Because my attitude is, a leader makes themselves redundant by bringing other people up to their level. That way I can go on and do more things. And so in the Campfire Project, we've had people talking about the issues that have been affecting them. But in the conversations we've been having, they're finding alternative ways of thinking. And so COVID has put us in a position where it really put a lot of pressure on everybody. But without that pressure, we probably never would have had those conversations. As they say, if you're going to build muscles, you've got to break your muscles down first. If you want to advance, we've got to step out of our comfort zone. So we've got to go through some pressure to create something new. So if we look at COVID from that point of view, and you know, I know a lot of the frontline workers, or all the frontline workers, have gone through so much, and they more than anybody else at this time need that support and everything else to be able to see, hey, there is something that they can get out of this and probably come out further ahead than everybody else with the right support, which is what your group is all about.
Yeah, fantastic. And how do people find the Campfire Project if they're interested to have a look or find out a little bit more about you?
Well, they just go on Facebook and they do a search on the Campfire Project. It'll come up first of all as a group page, and it's got a green forest background when the logo comes up. There's also the Campfire Project community, and that's a business page, because originally all the talks stay in the Campfire Project because people are talking about horrific things that have happened to them in their past, and I want to make sure the trolls don't get to them. But anybody who's done a one-on-one can also advertise projects that they're running. They might be running a group or an event, like your event, for instance, putting that in there and promoting that. But we got pretty messy when we started getting so many people doing one-on-ones. So I created a community group so that when people do the one-on-one in the campfire, in the community group, they can put their posts in there, and that now goes out to the world, not just closed in the Campfire Project members. And so just do a search on the Campfire Project and Campfire Project community when you find those two pages.
Fantastic. And what advice would you have for listeners today who are maybe suffering a little bit or a lot from the whole COVID situation? What pearls of wisdom would you have for them, Alan?
Well, as I've been saying to everybody, and that's no matter how good you are at what you do, in business, in life, I've always got coaches. You know, I've been referred to as one of the leading authorities on reading faces globally, but I will still be learning all the time, and I'll get the best coaches around me. It's important to talk to other people, but it's also make sure you're talking to the right ones, because quite often when people will hear your story, they will feel your pain and they don't want to feel it. So they'll start giving you advice really quickly. If somebody jumps in, I think the standard now is they say that somebody, once they start hearing someone's story, within 19 seconds, they will jump in and start giving advice. Wow. Find somebody who listens and asks you questions, not starts giving you advice, but ask you questions about it. And so that you get into a conversation, they will build rapport with you in that as well. And so in that, you'll feel a trust. And when you trust that person, you can open up more. But the thing is, don't keep it to yourself, because it's just going to drag you down. And there's a lot of people out there. I've got over 1,400 people in the Campfire Project, and there wouldn't be one in there who doesn't want to support other people. There's plenty of people out there.
Yeah, I think that's really important at the moment, because there are a lot of people who need support from all aspects of life. And I think for all of us, we need to also be able to reach out and ask for help, give help. Now, a lot of people are really good at giving help. Not so many people are good at asking for help. There seems to be some sort of shame attached to the fact that you might need help. Whereas I think, especially at the moment, you know, it's really important for people to do that.
That's it. And if people are worried about what other people think and everything else, and whether, you know, they think, oh, I've got to do this on my own, you'll put a group together with over 70 speakers that are coming along to it. If you think that people don't care, think again. So my suggestion to everybody who's out there, besides finding the right people to talk to, is to get along to as many of your speakers that you've got talking to listen in on that. Because if you don't come away from that with a different mindset, well, if you don't come away, you're not alive. You know, you're missing it altogether. There are a lot of people who want to help. They talked about us being in this together, and a lot of people just use that term. But there are a lot of us who believe that we are in this together. And by helping other people, we help ourselves as well. So if you're worried about somebody stepping up and saying, how can I help you? Just remember that they get something out of it as well. They feel that they've been able to be, you know, they're valued. They've been able to provide a service. And you're giving them a gift by telling them about what's going on in your life and asking them for help.
I think that's fantastic. You know, I must say, all the 70 speakers who are all coming together as part of the Vitality Festival, you know, everybody was so excited to donate their time, donate their energy, to really just bonding together and to showing people they care, they're here to support them, they want to contribute in some ways. And everybody, you know, that's what I found about this whole COVID time. There's been this real, you know, community vibe in some sense, even though we've been kept away. And especially, you know, organising this festival, the amount of help and support that people just want to offer to their fellow humans, frontliners or not. It's just that people really want to help. They see that some people are struggling, and some people during this time have been able to thrive. But there are a lot of amazing speakers over in the Vitality Festival that are going to give you so many useful tools and tips to really lift you up, change your mindset, help with you, you know, establishing communication and all sorts of things. So really, if you haven't signed up yet, please do. The link is below. We'd love to have you along. And thank you so much, Alan. I look forward to seeing you at the festival, and I'll be definitely checking out the Campfire project. So thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you very much for inviting me.